Friday, which means I'm gonna be a little more casual, a little shorter of a stream probably today. I don't have any like hard pressing functionality that I want to add to my 2D diagramming library. So what I'm going to be doing probably is finishing up a few diagrams in the pattern that I'm working on, and pardon me, and then just kind of look through some of the functions, see if I can re-implement them with maybe a slightly more efficient approach, add a little bit of doc strings here and there so that the functions in my library start to actually be documented, that sort of thing, and try to theorize about a way that I can implement offset functionality a little bit, which I can explain a little more once I get into it. But it's kind of just an easier day for me today. Just kind of take it easy and just get a little programming done. So I have up here basically as it was last time. Got my stream notes going here. I have my document that I'm working on here. Got a REPL here, and I've got my code and notes here, my main code here. So the pattern here, and the drawing utility code here, and everything working okay. So I want to start to get my brain in the zone of programming a little bit, or at least in the zone of what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm going to start by having a look at looking at template B here. What I think I need to do actually is rotate this shape so that it can fit more efficiently on a single piece of paper. Now actually, as I say that, let me think for a moment. These templates that I'm talking about, they're physical pieces of paper here that I'm just looking at as a starting point. So what I know is the user of these things is going to have a A4 sheet or letter size sheet if you're in North America, which most of the buyers will be. So the real size template has to fit inside that shape of rectangle, otherwise it won't make sense. Or otherwise it won't fit when you print it. So I might have to move this around in the document a little bit. But in order to find out, let me just open up that section of code here, template C, and scale it differently. Now actually, before I even do that, let me fix this because it looks weird. If I go like this, okay, template A, we can get rid of template B from this part. Right? And then here we're just going to have template B. Here I can get rid of all of this. Template B is just this part here. And then I just have to add that into the sources up here. Template B. When that rebuilds, there should be no visible change because the code ends up being identical, at least theoretically. So if we look at template B and change its scale, or sorry, I meant template C. Bounding box center, template C here, and the scale here. If I scale it up a lot bigger just to have a look, this width here is going to have to be bigger. Probably won't be big enough, but we'll give that a start. So we have a minor problem, well, a few. Zoom this whole thing out a little bit here. So what always ends up being a question when I'm rendering documents is, how do I handle margins for diagrams and stuff like that? If you have wider margins, things look nicer and are more readable, but you end up with way more pages needed to print, or like a PDF that ends up having way more pages because the margins prevent you from being really compact with your diagrams sometimes. So there's always a bit of trade-off. So right, for example here, if the margins here were a little wider, this would fit quite easily, but the margins are not, so I have to kind of move things around a little bit, which is fine, but it's always like a question of designing the document itself, which is sometimes challenging to do. So if I move this only one there and I move it 2 down, or even 0.5, that might look a little better. The other thing is the dot here. The scale of the dot shouldn't be that huge. Okay, so that's in a good spot. So let's scale the dot down, just like you see here. Scale. Scale. Fabric / scale. Fabric. All right. What was I doing? Checking the signature of this. Scale and elements. Right, so I want to scale this down to, I don't know, 0.1. Let's see if that makes any sense. Oops. So we should see this shrink to a more, whoop. What have I done? Ah, okay. I've put the scale on the incorrect spot here. I have to This might actually be a little more challenging than I anticipated because of how I wrote the dot function. I have to see. Let's see here. Dot outputs. If I give it 1 position, a dot is a circle Right, so dot's a circle, center 1, 1, radius, right, a hard-coded radius in here. So when I do the scale function over that, 0.1 of this dot, the scale, as I wrote it, is applied to a group that wraps it, which inevitably, right, that'll mess with, yeah. I have to do a convoluted thing for the dot scaling. Sorry, just gotta turn off my watch there for a minute. I was trying to get away with writing this library just with the easiest stuff first, and sometimes it's really great, but then you notice where your assumptions break down a little bit. Like I assumed when I made this scaling function that it wouldn't matter because whatever shape you have inside there is assumed to be at its origin point already. But if you're scaling down or up, right, the position here, 1 turns into 0.1, so then you end up drawing your points in the wrong spots. So what I actually have to do instead is, if I don't want to change the function at all, I have to do this. Move. I have to do it like this. It's a weird map. Move. Right? Because move takes an XY position and then the elements. I have to move by inner points the element that is a dot, a scale, 0.1 dot at position 0, 0. So that's the dot, scaled, move that by that. So that should now work, I think, if I'm thinking about this properly. Yeah, it does work. But let's make the scale 0.25 instead of 0.1 so you can still see the lines. And then let's write here, need better approach for applying transforms to shapes. Example dot 1, 1 scaled and move scaled will change the position of the dot, which is not necessarily what is intuitive. So that need to work on that, right? Like in theory, I would want move or scale 0.1 of dot 2010 to, instead of doing the G transform here, I would want it to instead spit out something like this: circle class tension, where CX is still 20, CY is still 10, and then R is what's changed. R is times some base dimension and the scale factor, which would in this case be 0.1. So I would rather have it output something like that, because that's way more concise. You don't have extra items being added into the DOM, right? Like here you now have a G node that wraps every circle that's in this, so it's a bigger file. It's not exactly ideal. So I'll have to work on that one, but that's okay. We have something working here. While I'm at this, let me fix this up properly so that we could use this in a way that makes sense. Oh, and I also want to see if possible to make CG center of gravity. Probably have to find all triangles in Polygon, find each triangle's center of gravity, and then average the centers. Otherwise, oh, I used to know what this is called. There's Centroidal axis theorem, which was a thing I learned in mechanical engineering classes, but it's not hard, but I don't remember the algorithm. It like you split everything into, you split a cross section of something into simpler shapes. So if it's say an I-beam, you split the I-beam into a rectangle at the top, a rectangle down the middle, and a rectangle at the bottom. You find the centers of area, or the moment center, something, I forget what the name is for each of those bits, and then you do some final calculation on those things, and then you'll get the center of gravity effectively of the whole area of the cross section. Obviously I'm not explaining it very well right now. That's because it's from memory of years ago. But I do know that that's a very straightforward and useful algorithm, so maybe that's what I could use. Okay, but that's for a whole other time. So if I want to, how does this work? I think it's just like this. Is that all I have to do? Y max, Y min. Let's see. So if I make a square, I'm just drawing on a scrap piece of paper here. -1, -1 to 2. No, make it to 3. Sure. 3, -1 to 3, 3 to -1, 3. Then the center of that, right, it's a square that's 2 by 2, no, 4 by 4, sorry. The center of that will be at 1, 1, or should be, right? Yeah. make a list of points. Three, -1, 3, 3, -1, 3, 2, 2. Right, so I have the length, so I have to still do this whole thing plus x min, right? Oops. Oh, I typed it wrong. Also, should type it in here. Y-min. Does that make sense? Yep. Okay, that looks pretty good. I think. Let me just check one more thing. So if I run the same thing on a square that's at 0, 0, this should be 1.5, 1.5. And let's do one that's completely negative. Negatives. Yeah, it looks like it works, so that's good. Bounding box center probably makes more sense to have not here, not in the template code, but in the draw thing here. Kind of like that. It makes a bit of sense. Save that. That shouldn't break anything here in the render. Pardon me. Appears to still be working, which is good. Yep. So we can comfortably move on to template C now, because template B is fine. I'm just for fun, I want to try something. Drop. If I drop 2 from, well, let's drop 1 from this vector that it contains a 1, a 2, and a 3. Does that give me a list that's 1 and 3? Oh, 2 and 3. Oh, it works. I see. I see. If I drop 2, that's the number of items to drop from a collection, not the indices of, like, not the keys to drop with. Are there other ways to do that? Drop, or, oh, it would be dissoc. Yeah, so if I dissociate from this vector 1, I should see a list that's 1, 3, right? Unless it doesn't work the way I think it does. Map key. Huh. Well, it doesn't matter. Never mind. A needless digression. That's okay. Let's see here. Now, template C is done. Template D is what I want to shift my focus to for a minute here. Template D is this one. So we have I stubbed it with just a square here. If I look at my pieces of paper, I've got A, B, C out of the way, D. Alright, D is going to be a polygon. Well, it is a list, so let's start with just the simplest polygon here. Well, yeah. Do it in a let. Let the points be a list of points. Whoop, whoop, wrong buttons. So we've got the first point, second, third, fourth point. It looks like this. It's very similar to this one, but different dimensions. Yeah, pretty straightforward. It does have some other annotations on it, but I'll add those later. Seam match. Yeah. Okay, that's good. So we're going to start with 0, 0, as is typical, because it's nice and easy. And then we're going to measure it out for a minute. Just roughly, all of this I get to dial in more accurately off stream when I have the right tools to do measuring properly. But I have just like a grade school ruler to do it with now. It's better than nothing, but it's not accurate enough for my comfort. So we've got 6 and 1/8. So that's going to be 6.18 is 1250. And then if you're tuned in and watching, by the way, I really appreciate that. Feel free to talk in the chat. I'd love to answer questions, just talk, anything like that. I also realize I have to turn off my air conditioning because it might be making a little bit of noise, so. Probably a little better to keep that off during the stream. I can handle a bit of heat. To be honest, I didn't even know it was on. I should have realized, but as I was saying, you're tuning in and just wanting to watch and not chat, that's totally cool too. I appreciate the views. If you want to chat, you go right ahead. That'd be cool too. I hope everyone's having a good time. Okay, so we've got 2 and 7/8, and 7/8 is going to be 875, right? Is the Y position, and then X for this next spot is 9, boosh. And then here we're at 0x and 2.875y, which looks pretty nice. So now we can draw that by doing polygon of points. It's the first item in the list. We can close that. Well, actually, before I go ahead and close that, I may as well put the next thing in there. It's going to be polygon of offset points by 1/4 inch. That's that. Close the list, save that, and see what it looks like rendered. There we go. If you look at my camera window, I'm holding it up in front of my face, but this looks pretty much like what I want it to look like, which is really good. So I just had a little idea. I want to try something with the polygon function for a minute. If I go, well, close draw, close pattern, open this, shapes. Where did I put Polygon? I thought I had it in there. Oh, something's going a little wonky here with the... Alright, let me extricate this from this part of my code and put it in a spot that I'm more comfortable with. Shapes. There's a polygon. So I have here line dashed or it's not dashed, but I'm trying to think of what I want to do with the option of having a dashed polygon. So the immediate thought that comes to mind is polygon dash, like that, where I have the class line dashed in there. So if I then use that right away on it'll be more noticeable. If I go to template C for a moment here and I do polygon dashed on the inner points polygon, then this should turn into dashed lines if the CSS is there, which I think it is. Let's inspect this. Did I miss something? Inspect this one. Polyline has, oh shoot, I've made some bad assumptions. Right, line dash D has, I built some, oof, this is good, this is messy. Okay, in the draw namespace, some shapes and annotations have styling built into the function. Other places, the styling is assumed to exist in the CSS, i.e. it's somewhere else. This is not consistent and is confusing. Example, Polygon has line class, but line dash D is not a class. It is, well, Well, okay, so if I make that into a class, does that solve my problem? It kind of does. What's the right thing to do? What would be really handy is if I could define any function and just cram its, like, and just in place, just put all of its attributes and then have a macro run over it and pull out the attributes and put them into a CSS thing when it compiles the document. That way, like everything I want is in a CSS spot, but as I'm writing it, I can just write it wherever. I don't know if that's smarter or not, but it would be cool. It'd be convenient to do. Yeah, I don't know. Let me well, let me do the simple thing again for a minute here. If I take this and go here, I can actually paste all of that right in here, and it'll look the way I want it to, or it should. It was incorrect. Why is that? Let me see. Right, so this is the polygon. Did it not build with the right oh, maybe this isn't tangling. Let me see here. I may have turned off the tangle. No. Polygon D. Draw. Draw shapes is there. I'm a little confused. Let's just do VS Code. Let's just open it up in a different window entirely for a minute. Let's open up the draw source file and see if the function's there the way I think it is. Can close these. Leave that open. Let's have a look. At the source file, draw here. Right, I should have, if I find Polygon, right, I've got Polygon and Polygon-D, which is what I'm trying to get to work properly. And I thought it would work with these definitions here. Stroke dash array, right, the class should be fine. What am I missing? Well, let me think about it for a minute. I have to head to the washroom for a minute. Shouldn't be long. Apologies for the delay. I am back. I hope everyone is doing okay out there, having a good time, working on stuff that they want to work on. If none of that's true, I hope at the very least that this tuning in is enough of a distraction or in some way valuable to you. Hope everything's going okay. Feel free to talk in the chat if you want to, ask questions, have general comments, talk about programming, talk about your own projects. All of that's cool. If you're just watching, that's cool too. I'm actually really stumped why this Polygon thing isn't working. It's just meant to be a simple little side step, but I don't know why it's not. That's not what I need. I wonder if I take the class part out here. Or the line part out of the class anyway. Will that make a difference? Let's see if it works the way I think it does. Diamond.point.md. Right, so it all renders. It's a big garbled mess, eh? It's kind of funny. So if I were to just very, very quickly try to guess where what I'm looking for is, it'll be it doesn't matter. Wait a second, Polygon. Let's just go to this, do this, unable to resolve. Ah, here it is. That's the whole reason. Save that. So now it should work. Yep. Right, so the reason for that is because Polygon D, I was calling it with just a list of points and no second argument, which means it was calling the original Polygon function, not Polygon dash, so it never had a chance to even bother applying this at all. So if I now do this, what happens? And let's also go back to template C for a moment and change this back to -D. And then template D is -D like that. Wait for it to build. Yeah. Okay, there we go. That was a little more convoluted than it needed to be, but I got there. So we have now, should be consistent here. Template A. So if I change in diamond template here, this one, the inner one is the dashed one. If I save that, both template A and template B should work now. Or should work. They already work. They should have the dashed lines there. Yep. That's good. That looks cool. Now, the obvious, let's see here. Well, obvious. In Fabric, yeah. Let me think for a minute. Pardon me. Apparently I'm tired today. That's okay. In Fabric, I need visual distinctions from lines for the following kinds of lines. Right? We have just solid in diagrams. No. So I need sewing line, like sew along this line. You need cut line, as in you cut along that line. Sewing line, cut line, or general annotation, right? So have a legend and use both dash pattern and color to distinguish, I think. Although the downside of using color is that if someone prints something off on a black and white printer, they might lose information. So that's not perfect either. But that is a problem that I'll think about as I keep making diagrams. Sometimes the best way to get through figuring out how to actually draw a thing you want to draw is to just keep drawing without a solution, and then one day, like, it'll just, like, you'll be drawing it one time and think, oh wait a minute, if I do it this way, and then suddenly you've almost magically solved your own problem without even really trying. Your subconscious ends up doing it for you. Okay, so last thing to do on template D. Now that I have a Polygon D kind of working, let's go here. See in template D. C was done. I meant D and template E, I guess. Yeah, perfect. Okay. Right. So template D, I'm going to move it over 0.5 and down 2. Scale I'll change in a moment. Template C, I actually have this line. I just am thinking through something here. Diamond template. Template C. If I can actually turn this into a function. Call it Polygon template, and its arguments will be the name, the points. Wait a second, let me see here. If I, for using the same logic here, name, width, height, height offset, I hard-coded the 1/4 inch into that template, so I'll use the same logic there. So it'll be name and points, and that's actually it, which means right, so I don't need this let anymore for this one. Right. Polygon D, inner points, map, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Perfect. So I can just do this like that. And the label is the only thing that changes here, and it turns into label with name on it. So then template C actually just becomes this. Def template C as a call to Polygon template, where I pass in the name C and the list of points here, and that's it. That's template C, and all this gets deleted because I don't need it anymore. Figure template C is just template C, which is a Polygon template, which ends up like that, which means template D can actually be simplified away a little bit. So if I define that as a call to Polygon template named D, that's it. That's the whole thing. Template D is that thing. So if I save that, hopefully I didn't make an error, and that should work. So there is a mistake. Right here. Right? I think that should work now. Still is something wrong. Name points. Points, not inner points. Points. And also there was something wrong with my parentheses. Classic problem. Oh, there's still a problem here. Learn Emacs parinfer or paredit instead of manually closing parens all the time. I'm sure there's a plugin to make my life simpler with that. Okay, but now it does work. There's no errors there. The only problem is the dot scaling issue, which I know exists. I have a note of that already, so I'm going to call it good for now, and I'll shift this up to a large scale size here. Hey Bizmonger, how's it going? Hope you're having a good day. Okay. You're alive? Well, I guess that's better than the alternative, eh? Hard day for you? Do you ever visit the YouTube link? So I actually did click through it. I'll be honest, I didn't sit through the whole thing. Might be an opportunity to revisit, but yeah, I didn't have the chance yet to go through the whole thing. I do have the still have the link, so maybe if I have some time this weekend, it might be something I'll look into. But yeah, I don't want to lie and say I watched the whole thing. That isn't the case. But I appreciate it anyway. Let's see here. All right. I've always wondered if refactoring was easy in Clojure. So my honest impression, people claim it's not an issue. I kind of... If I really, you don't believe them? Well, I wonder why you don't believe that. My personal thought on refactoring is that it's about equivalently difficult in most languages. And by that, I just mean that refactoring is not really a mechanical process. It's more like you read a bit of code to understand its intent, and then you try and think of a more optimal way in which to rewrite it so the functionality is maintained but it's more efficient or something like that. So that process I kind of feel applies it, or is about equally challenging in any kind of language, right? Like if you want to truly refactor some Python, you're mentally doing similar things to truly refactoring something like Rust or like Clojure or like any language. Obviously there are differences with how convoluted things can get in other languages, but that's kind of the impression I get. Of course, big asterisk, it's just my opinion, right? Renaming a function that affects other libraries that rely on the function. Actually, that is a fair point. One thing that Rich Hickey, the creator, like the original inventor of Clojure, he may have mentioned it in a talk one time. Maybe he was half tongue-in-cheek. He was saying something like this: if you have my function, right, and it has some signature A, B, C, and you return, right, it does something. Right? Like, let's imagine that. And then you release your program into the wild, right? You've got my function, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 4, whatever. It does the thing. Everyone gets really used to it, but for some reason, you need to, when you're updating your library, you need to rework my function. Rich suggested that, I mean, really, there's no reason that you need to delete this function, right? You can kind of just leave it. And then you've got, now, let's say my function 2 takes A, B, C, but instead of a string, it's or string ABC, it's doing, I don't know, it's a contrived example, but bear with me. A, B, C, right, of interleave A, B, C with repeat that, right? Let's imagine that you rework your function to do that. So now users of your library can safely update, right? They could still call my function if I even knew how to do it, right? And then, but your documents and your release update information tells you that, well, of course my function's an error, but the point is you never actually have to get rid of the old function. You can actually just like accumulate new functions into your library. Now, is that a perfect solution? Almost certainly not, but it was an interesting idea that that I heard about. Seemed cool. I want to be clear, by the way, I'm not for or against any of those ideas. My personal experience with Clojure and renaming functions and all of that is it truly hasn't been an issue. But I have not worked in massive apps in like a business environment, right? My projects have been smaller, concise things that I use. So, you know, mileage may vary with my experience on that. So that just a bit of a digression there. Domain-driven design. You practice domain-driven design, so getting terminology correct is important. What do you mean by terminology? Like the names of functions, or something more fundamental than that? Or I don't know what you mean. Sorry. And all DDD is domain-driven design, right? I think. I believe so. Yeah. Well, so you've seen it, DSLs, domain-specific languages, yeah. I think getting terminology correct is absolutely important. Mutual understanding between stakeholders and programmers. Yeah, I mean, even if you don't practice domain-driven design, like technically, yeah, vocabulary reduces risk. Those are like, that's generically good advice, I find. Like, when I found it when I was doing some industrial design work, and I had to talk with salespeople and then talk with the engineering team about what we were designing. If you're using different terms to talk about the same thing, it's so easy to talk past each other. So that very same thing happening with actual code that executes, you really do want to have terminology that everyone agrees on. So that makes complete sense. So that is actually why my insight, if you're asking me specifically, is probably not perfect, because my stakeholders are the users of, and I use stakeholders very loosely. They're people that just want a nice rendered document, right? They don't know what any of my draw functions look like. They don't know what any of this is, right? They don't technically care either, right? They just want to see a nice diagram in the document. So for right now, I haven't encountered any mismatches with understanding. To say that it won't happen, I don't know, but I'll have to see. Okay, so I've got template D there. By the way, not sure, is there a statically typed Lisp? I'm not sure. There probably is. I've heard of this thing, ferret lang. Oops. Wait, no, sorry, I mixed. This is not. I don't think this is statically typed. Yeah, no. This is a Lisp that compiles to C++, which is really cool, but yeah, no, that's not quite it. I don't know. Racket? Yeah, Racket might be. It could be. I have Racket is on like the list of languages in my brain to learn, because it does seem cool. But the weird thing is, it's like, since I'm using Clojure already, I kind of wonder, well, why would I change? But it's still on the list in my brain of things to learn, so it might be cool. So let's see here. We'll just make one more little template thing here. Template E. So I have what the document I'm working on is a pattern for making a quilt. Might seem kind of out of left field, but this is part of what I'm working on for people from time to time. So I have just, these diagrams are just 2D SVG renders into the document, and these template things I'm working on are just, they're pieces of paper that you have to print out one-to-one scale and then cut out, and then the user of the thing, like if you're sewing a quilt together, you have the templates, you can trace it onto your fabric, cut out the fabric, and then you have the right size. So that's what these templates mean in this context. And that's why there's a little 1-inch square here that the user can print off and make sure that they've scaled it correctly. So this, the other day I was working on 3D rendering stuff in here. This is 2D. It's all using the same sort of back system, and the idea is exactly the same. You write prose and code that creates diagrams all in one thing, and it renders it out for you to look at as you're going. It's just I'm only using the 2D part of it right now, because on my end it's a Friday and I'm not feeling, I don't feel like sitting and doing crazy complicated thinking. Dog fooding, yeah, a little bit of dog fooding. My strategy for building this library up over time is, what I actually care about is the stuff that I can create from the library. So quilt pattern PDFs for the people that are asking me to do that. CAD files and design docs for the stuff I want to build. Other stuff that I can't think of off the top of my head. But the outputs are what I want to keep doing. And if I keep making them, right, like if I design 5 different things that I want to build, I'll have 5 different examples of use cases for the library. And every time the library grows with functions that I actually need. So I don't guess up front what I think I'll need. I make a thing to discover what I will need and then put that in the library. That's the idea. Is it a single library? This starting one is a single library. I'm thinking what I want is a base library with the idea that you can write extensions, and then those extensions you can load in for different parts of your, like if you're rendering only 2D stuff into your document, you only ever need the 2D extension. So the code runs quick when it's rendering your 2D stuff. If you know you only need 3D, you only load the 3D part. So right now it's a single library, but I'm totally open to changing the architecture around. Again, that falls into the same idea of, as I keep using it, I'll discover what actually makes the most sense. I started with a single library because I thought it would be small and compact, and maybe I discover that it grows and I need to separate it out. But honestly, I don't know yet, so I'm not going to pretend like I do. You know, I hope that makes a bit of sense. It's all a work in progress to summarize. Template E. It's all a work in progress. Right, so template E is a right angled triangle that's 3 1/4 inch by 3 1/4 inch, which I believe I have, if I go into the fabric here, HST 2. Does that look like what I need it to? Pardon me, excuse me. Okay, so I'm thinking a minute about how I want to do this part, but let me get rid of this. Well, actually, let me try something. Let's cheat a little bit. Shapes, no, it's not even in here. Right, HST. Can bulletproof it with property-based testing. What is property-based testing? I've heard it before, but my understanding of it is incomplete. So here, this is way simpler than, let me get rid of this, zip all that away. Okay, does that work? Let's try it. That should be fine. Auto-generate edge cases when testing your assumptions. Oh, so I've fiddled around with this. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Clojure, there's a Clojure library that lets you write specifications for inputs and outputs of functions, and then you can actually run spec to like auto-generate tests like you say, and then run them. Like you can use it to create large amounts of somewhat random inputs that match what your specification states, run all of those through the function and see if it always spits out valid outputs. I also believe there's a whole big system that people have made in Haskell to do that same idea with like huge code bases and stuff. I think. I'm kind of just speaking out of nowhere though. I don't know if that's entirely accurate. But let's see here now. If I go here, let's try something. Template E is Hey Bismonger, not sure if you're trying to share a link or something like that, but I actually turned off sharing sharing URLs directly. So if that's what you're trying to do, sorry for that. But I was thinking about it, and in general, it's probably, for the time being, just better if I leave those off. But yeah, if it's like the name of a talk or something that you're trying to point to, if you put the name in there or something, I can copy that and then I can put it in later. Test check on Clojure. Oh yeah, and quick check is the name of the thing. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Quick check is the Haskell thing that I had heard about before. Yeah. Cool. Property-based testing, yeah. Sweet. I like it. Hey Bismonger, you said you use F#, right? Do you actually use Clojure as well? Or are you just interested in it at the moment? Or both? Yeah, F#. Is this gonna work? Let's find out. No, you don't use Clojure. You're only interested. You've never met a disgruntled Clojure developer. Maybe it's just the disgruntled developers don't come out and talk about it. Maybe there's a filtering effect on that. But I like Clojure because it feels like it's just fun to use. Is really, when I come down to it, I really like the kind of workflow I'm learning as I go. I can't speak for everyone, of course, but I just happen to really enjoy it. I made a mistake somewhere. Let me see when I build the document in the REPL what happens. String cannot be cast to function. Hey. If I called the right function, maybe it'd be better. It's a very different paradigm. I'm sure there's techniques that I can borrow. Probably. Is F#, it is also functional, right? It's statically typed, but is it a functional first kind of language as well? There we go. Oh. This is almost what I was expecting, except that the dotted line should be on the inside, not on the outside. So something went south there for a minute. Functional first, yeah. Nice. So at least you're in like the same ballpark, right? It's not like comparing, I don't know, something like if you're programming directly in C, that's probably quite different than Clojure and quite different than F#. But then again, there's probably something useful in most languages. Your anti-dynamic languages though? Yeah. I'm not going to be so bold as to claim anti or pro anything. I really personally think that dynamic or static, there's probably cases where it's really nice to use dynamic, cases where it's really nice to use static, and the bulk of the cases in the middle, using either one can be fine either way. But again, my opinion, I don't know, right? It's just kind of the feeling I get. Okay, so I do have to figure out why this is on the outside as opposed to the inside, because that's not correct. Let's see. Let's not draw that for a minute. Let's draw just a polygon of HST points of 3.25. Should be fine. Compiler inference tends to get better. Yeah. I mean, it falls into, that's a fair point, right? It kind of falls into the idea of, hey, just let the computer do the hard stuff. Well, the hard stuff, right? Use your own brain for thinking about the architecture, the implementation, meaning program as if it were dynamic. Yeah, that's a fair point. So like, I want to be clear, right? I'm not opposed to statically typed languages. It's literally just that I haven't learned a statically typed language well enough yet to really have a strong opinion on anything either way. I'm not opposed. I just haven't done that work yet. Oops. I just want to do this, Polygon -D of offset HST points. Let's also comment this out for a minute. 3.25. Offset it by 1/4 inch. Save that. Have I ever bothered with Scala? Here it's painful. Yeah, I've not tried Scala yet. That is also a JVM based language, right? I think it is. Okay, so that's what it should look like. Yeah, and why doesn't it? We'll find out. Maybe No. What? That doesn't... I have confused myself. Now I need to think about this for a moment. Yeah, Scala is a JVM language. Yeah, so I've heard about it. I don't know much about it at all. All I do know is that it's on the JVM as well. This should be staring me right in the face. Okay. Points is the inner. Polygon template. Why is the offset going the wrong way? Let me just... Oh, I might have... Okay, the winding might be backwards from what I normally do. It might be something related to that. You stepped away. Stepped away from your computer or stepped away from Scala? From computer. Hey, no worries. So... Not sure if I asked anything. No, so I don't know how much you watch of streams and whatnot. I am fairly new to this, so what I do is I hide the view count and all of that stuff, so I have no idea how many people are tuned in and watching at any point. So I just prefer that, and so I just kind of pretend that I have to be talking about things to some audience. At the very least, then, it means in the future, if someone's rewatching a video or something, that it's not complete dead air. So if you step away, that's totally cool. If I'm chit-chatting, it might be for no reason in particular, just yammering on, that kind of thing, you know? Are colors a separate library? Not actually. So if I go up here, this diagram has colors built in, or built in. This is using colors, as you can see. So what that is something that looks like, here, let's see, I can actually draw a little example here. Square, I'll make a square of 2, and I'll give it a color of A. Now, there's a reason that I use color A. For every quilt pattern that I'm producing, there's a different set of fabric colors that are used, and I don't know them beforehand. So what I do is I have a preamble that compiles to CSS styles. So A refers to the first fabric used in the pattern, and it could be whatever color. Something isn't rendering at the moment though, so give me a minute to see why there's an error. My apologies for that. But so the point is, some of these functions, they'll draw a thing and they'll either have annotations. Sorry, I'm not sure what you mean. So colors, I like it just uses CSS to style the particular elements. And so when you're making a quilt pattern, there's a bunch of different colors available. Not important? All right, I'll take your word for it. Oh, I goofed. Something went wrong somewhere, and I don't know what I did. I gotta take a second to think about this. Oh, I goofed with parens there. There we go. I think that could work now. There we go. How I manage separation of concerns. There's no official approach to managing that yet. This is a highly iterative approach that I'm taking, right? So there's a lot of stuff I don't know up front, and I don't have a total plan for everything. Now, I do have a plan, but it's rather open-ended. So colors, if this is what you meant for rendering, you see that. I have some in the preamble here. I have from my last pattern some CSS colors selected already. So that's why I happen to know that there's A through F colors defined. But that those colors are going to change for this coming pattern. So, but it's pretty straightforward there. And if I don't pass a color into the function at all, it gives it a class of clear, which just means there's no, the fill is 0. So you can use that to draw lines if you need to. So there you go. Fairly straightforward at this time. Now, the thing that's confusing me still is why this is the way that it is. And I think if I do this, I might discover a reason why. Yeah. Okay, so I made this offset function that takes a list of points of a that defines a polygon, right? So a square will be a list of 4 points at here, 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 and here. And then offset will offset all of those edges, find the intersections of those new edges, and then give you back new edges, or pardon me, new points to make a bigger polygon that exactly traces the polygon. And in order to do that in an easy way, I made an assumption about the order that you specify your points. So I believe it's like the offset will go outward if your points are clockwise, but it'll go inward if your points are anti-clockwise. So that assumption works, except that for this triangle here, my function puts the points the other way around, so the offset is inverted from what I need. So here the offset is correct, and here it's not. So I'm going to just change that a little bit. That would be in this offset section here. No, it actually won't be, because that's not where the problem is. No, it's not even there. It's in this one. As you might be able to tell, organization of the library might leave a little bit to be desired. There's always room for improvement. So if I just cycle this order around like this, start at 0, 0, go horizontal first, and then go vertically, right? That should work. Save that, and that should build in the background and work. I think, I hope. There we go. Okay, we're back on track, more or less. yeah, so now I can just clean this part up here, don't need those. Get that back in there. Now let's just move stuff around a little bit and try to reduce the space required for the thing here. So what's happening now, right? I happen to know, just because I've been using the library, what changing these values will do. But it's not immediately obvious what's going on, right? Like, I have a function figure, and this is the width, this is the height, and this is the scale of the figure. Now that's not really intuitive. So there's a lot of those sorts of things that over time I don't have I don't know upfront what a better design idea would be for that, but I suspect that there is one, and I trust that doing this enough times, I'll be able to realize a more efficient way to do that kind of stuff. But it can be really confusing if you don't know how to use the library, what's happening in the library, right? And that's not exactly good. It doesn't really inspire user friendliness. So that's always kind of a meta goal, is to figure out, methods for improving it on it, like in a more abstract way as well. So that's template E. I'll just do one more template and then see if there's anything else I can think to do for the day, but I don't have a ton of time, so okay, this will be another one I'm doing. It's a triangle, but it's got a little notch on the side here. So I'll do that, and then we'll just see how things go from there. So that is template F. The other thing I always feel a little nervous about is, so right now I'm copying and pasting code blocks that are almost the same, but I don't know, like, at what point do you wrap it up into a function or just leave it be? Because it's not always worth making a function out of things if you're just copying a few things, but sometimes it is, and it's kind of hard for me to know when to do any of those things. It's a little bit of art. It's not pure scientific approach, That's okay though. It's all learning. It's all part of the process. Hey Bizmonger, if you're still there, I'm actually kind of curious. Do you watch a lot of programming streams? Yeah, you're there? Cool. Yeah, you do? So do you find them enjoyable? Like, what's kind of the main reason you watch them? And by the way, don't feel obligated to answer if you don't want to. I don't mind. I'm just curious. Okay, so we have template F. So far it's exactly identical, which makes sense because I haven't changed it. But instead of this point set here, I'm gonna put in my own point set. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4 points, so 3, 4 points there. You enjoy mentoring newbies? Mentoring newbies? Are a lot of programming streams newer people? Also interested in the competition? Fair point, fair point. So yeah, fair enough. When I tune into a programming stream, I actually find what I personally like seeing the most is the way in which other people think through things, if that makes sense. You know, like if they're stuck on something and they talk out loud about what they're thinking, that's usually pretty interesting to me. Other times it's actually just kind of nice to have it on as somewhat background noise. It kind of makes you feel like you have to be productive too. So I kind of use it to trick my brain into being a little more productive than I might otherwise be. Yeah, that's what you're doing now? Cool, man. Yeah, hopefully I'm not too distracting for you. If you want me to stop asking you questions directly, you just say so, eh? You're coasting at your job right now? Well, that's too bad, man. Or maybe that's good, I don't know. Whatever you want to do. Let's see here. 6.625. 6.6250 and 6.625, 2 inches. Ooh. Quarter inch plus a quarter inch back, yeah. 6.375. Could have done that in my head, but I didn't. That's okay. 2.25. Yeah. Okay, so that. Let's see here. You didn't realize how advanced you were until you job hop or view other people's streams. Sounds arrogant, but you're being honest. Hey, that's cool, man. You gotta know. Well, I think it's helpful to know kind of where you are with your skill set and your understanding. It is important, or at the very least, it's useful to know. Yeah. I'm not streaming because I think I'm an expert, by the way. I know that I have so much to learn, but I'm streaming because it's kind of fun to do. And I don't know, I feel like what I'm doing is useful, and you don't need to be perfect in order to be able to do useful things, if that makes any sense. I'm just having a good time. But yeah, it is definitely very helpful to know where you stand relative to perhaps people you work with or the world at large, if it's relevant. So I get that. I understand. Did I not save this? Did it not do anything? We shall see. Am I learning a new process of building software for paying customers? Yeah, that's actually kind of a long-term, that's a bit of the thought behind all of this kind of stuff. I have a few different ideas for how I want to actually go about monetizing a bit of this work. Which I don't need to get into the details all that much, but different aspects of this library I think are probably pretty useful to small business people who don't care about setting up a workflow like this themselves, right? So I feel as if there's something there. That's your objective? Faster, more maintainable? You coined spec as a library workflow? I'm confused by that. Spec like the Clojure library? Library? Blah, blah, blah. If I could speak properly, that might be useful. Let's go here, 0.5. The other side of this, what I like, the other goal beyond money and all that kind of stuff is I genuinely like building tools that are useful for people, and I like just building stuff in general. So this really, it does scratch that itch for me a little bit, which is quite nice. I enjoy that. You know, not everything has to be about money, in my opinion. So, you know, there's an element of fun that I have here too. So, build an abstraction as a standalone library for other libraries to interpret. Yeah, I think that's a good kind of approach. 2.5. So you said you were coasting at your current job. Are you working like as a programmer right now, or are you doing other stuff? Geez, seriously? I'm trying to guess at the right distance to draw things, and I'm not getting it right. Loose coupling with dedicated compliance contracts. Yeah. Hired as a heads down programmer. Do you mean heads down? You mean like sit and do the work we tell you kind of thing? Is that what you mean by heads down? Or is that like an official term that I just haven't heard of? Yeah. Oh man. That can be exhausting. Sorry, man. Yeah, just writing code. Now, I know this is far-fetched, but it'd almost be cool if you could like make a program that just does your job for you, you know? And then be done with it. There are some actual jobs in offices that I'm quite sure you could completely automate and just not have to do anymore. But programming is kind of on that edge where it's not totally like that. Yeah, for admin stuff, that makes complete sense. All that really repetitive stuff, right? Form filling, send this report there, do that, send this email at this time, whatever else. It's pretty straightforward stuff usually. Okay, that's template F done for now. Let's see. What else do I actually want to accomplish today? Truth be told, I'm a little lazy at the moment. Let me see if there's anything I can think to do before I head out. Because I got a few minutes yet. Write a blog post. It's not a horrible idea. It's also not something I'm going to do on the stream. That would be super boring to watch, I think. Yeah, one thing I haven't done yet is actually create a blog, but I want to have a blog for like tied to my stream and what I'm working on as well. That does seem like it'd be pretty cool. Okay. Clean up code a bit. Yeah, let's see here. Let me just go here for a moment. Shapes. Ooh, I'm gonna see if I make one change if it's a little bit more effective. Document the journey so no one can dispute the experience. You've got your own there, your own WordPress. Here, I'll put that in my notes here actually for a minute. I won't check it out right now, but I will have a look here. Or wordpress.com, something like that. Give it a shot. I do find blog posts and writing in general is like a really nice way to kind of clean up your thinking a little bit too. It's quite nice. Brain dumps so you can reference them later. Yeah, that's smart. Almost like a personal wiki or something like that, right? Something I've been meaning to do for a long time, but have never properly sat down and done yet. There's always more things you want to do than time in the day. At least it feels that way, you know? If I go and look at so I definitely need to fix a few decisions I've made about color styling and things like that when it comes to lines, because I've accidentally put let me write a note about this because I will need to do this. Find a consistent approach to adding styles to fills, styles to shapes, including path stroke styles and fill styles. That matters because if I bake it into the shape calls themselves, it seems easy, but then you have all of that hard-coded into your document, and the document could get big in terms of file size. But if I put it in the CSS, you might accidentally, or you might, it might be not coupled enough or something like that. So I have to think about that. I don't have a solution off the top of my head though, but I'm gonna start with something here that if I look at this, copy that into, if I go here, right, I can reference that for a moment. You also used to read Stack Overflow questions as if they were the morning news. Man, that makes for dry reading sometimes. Not always, but sometimes. Stack Overflow is a mixed bag, I find. There's a lot of amazing explanations, but sometimes you really have to dig. Sometimes it's not what you need. All in all, though, I do think it's probably more valuable than not. Okay. I'm just going to add here stroke line cap round. Ooh, gotta see, this is where things are messy. Is this really the right way to do it? It's not, but it's what I'm going to try for now. Let's do stroke dash array. I have to see if this will even work, or maybe if I'm thinking about it wrong. Right, so that should actually be it. Okay, let's try that. Let me see now if I go back here. If I just entirely remove this for a moment. Did I do the right thing? We'll see. Keeps you up to date on language usage. Reading Stack Overflow, yeah. I'm sure it does. I'm sure it's, oh, I did something wrong. Who would have guessed, eh? If I go have a look at inspect this here for a minute. Am I looking at the right thing? Where did it go? Ugh, what a mess. Okay, so here, invalid property. Dash array is invalid as well. So there's some typos or something here, or something wrong there. Right, so I could, if I do that, will that fix it? Maybe it will. Maybe it will. Whoop. Just go there. You're in Toronto. Where am I? I'm not in Toronto, but I'm in Ontario, along the QEW. I'm not sure that it's wise necessarily to give specifics, but I'm in the Niagara region. I'm not sure if you're familiar. If you're in Toronto, you probably are familiar with Niagara. If I like I can see Lake Ontario if I step out my apartment door and just look over. I'm right close to Lake Ontario. Okay, so now at the very least I have a class in CSS that does the dashed lines instead of hard coding that into the nodes of the polygon, like into the properties of the polygon directly, which I think is probably better. So that's good. Visited the vineyards in Niagara? Yeah, there's tons around here, man. There's wine and there's breweries all over the place. Really, it's not so bad, but there are a lot of them. And a lot of greenhouses too. Okay. Let's have a quick peek here. If I can write some notes about a little bit of rework to do off stream, maybe I can come up with something. Okay, so I have SVG here as a def element. If I load up this here, SVG, (200, 200, scale 1, and the content will make empty. Let me just see here. Yeah, okay, so that is useful to have like that. That's good. Bounding block center. I want to make a center of gravity center function at some point. Actually, let me quickly find center of gravity of any polygon. Probably the algorithm is to split it into triangles or something. Center of gravity of a polygon. Oh, here we go, Stack Overflow. Center of mass or centroid, calculated with that formula. Yeah, I've seen this one before. And vertices. Polygon signed area. What language is this? Is it .NET or VB.NET? Anyway, I don't need to do that right now. That'll be for another day. I know it's not going to be too hard to do. Centroid. VB? Yeah. There's a lot of clever ways to do this. Balancing method, that's kind of cool. This one here was actually what I was thinking, where you run, like you give it any polygon and then you run a pass where it splits it down into sub-polygons, right? Like essentially by making triangles. And then for each of those it finds the centroid, and then it does the math to basically average them back together. But that I can do later. I don't want to do it right now. Yep. Okay. Good. I know I don't need to look at that right now. Oh, let me write a little note about test check first for a moment, because that is good to do. Study Clojure / test.check, hook it into file save maybe, so that it's running. Well, maybe that's not smart if it's doing a ton of tests. Anyway, figure it out. That's good. NASA's relying more and more on mechanical origami. Oh, you mean like putting a massive solar panel into as small a container as possible, that kind of thing? James Webb. I don't know what that is. Let's see here. Space telescope. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. There's all kinds of cool stuff to invent and build, eh? Does my library accommodate that type of use case, origami? Not yet, but it can, right? That's maybe a super unfair answer. The truthful answer is I haven't thought of it. And then the next thought is, but if I study enough on what would actually be needed for something like that, I could make it, right? Like there's not really a limit on what you can do with 2D and 3D rendering in documents, right? You can come up with algorithms and whatnot. Sounds like this is the core library. Yeah. Probably. Like the core of it ultimately will probably be a parser and a basic transformer to get all of the, at the very least, get like your document rendered into some fashion, right? And then the extensions would be for anything more advanced that you want in here, right? 2D diagrams, 3D diagrams, interactive 3D, etc., etc. You would have an extension that you could load in, and that would be part of the rendered element itself. So the extensions are not core. This would be core. I just happen to be in a prototyping phase, right? So it all looks like it's jumbled together, but I can pull it out and separate it when it's ready for some kind of release. But I'm gonna stop just scrolling up and down and not doing anything. I am going to get going now, I think, because I hadn't prepared any more things to do other than keep doing this, and to do that on stream for the rest of the day is not necessary. So I think probably it's good for me to get going. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for engaging. I really appreciate that. I will be It's been real. Yeah, man. Hopefully you can manage to make work not totally horrible. That really does suck. But for this whole month, I'm going to be doing this every day. That's not a thing I'm going to do all the time, but that does mean I'll be back again at 12:30 tomorrow and 12:30 on Sunday. And for the whole month, I'm just going to keep at it. And then after that month, I'll have a better idea of a more realistic schedule. So that's a long-winded way of saying, hey, if you enjoyed this, tune in again. I'd love it. If not, that's cool too. But enough chit-chat. I'm going to get going. Have a good one.